The first thing you're going to want to do when you start working in Fusion 360 is to be able to draw a sketch. A sketch is the basis for your design, and you can draw a sketch on any plane or any flat face. What we mean by this is that when you start to draw a sketch by pressing the Create Sketch button, you'll see that three yellow planes appear. Those three yellow planes are the XY, the YZ, and the XZ planes. So basically, as you can see, I can rotate around here. So as I draw in Fusion 360, I can highlight one of those planes on which to start drawing. I'm going to choose this particular plane down the bottom here as my first point of drawing. I can then use the drawing tools, any of them, to draw. I've got a 2-point rectangle here, which I've pulled out by clicking down here, choosing the rectangle, and if you go, for example, on this one here, you can press this button here and you can pin it to the toolbar. I'm going to draw the rectangle there, 2-point rectangle, and just draw a line from here to here. I'm also then going to draw a circle, just using the center point circle from this point here out like so, and hit stop sketch. Once I've drawn my sketch, I can modify it. I'm going to modify it here by using the press pull button. I can modify any closed area, or I can modify multiple closed areas. In this case, I'm going to modify this closed area over here and this one here, but not the one in the middle. So I'm going to pull that up. So you see I've got this strange shape here with a sort of a Pac-Man eating into a rectangle. I can rotate around and see my solid shape. If I wanted to create a new sketch by clicking on the Create Sketch button, I can create that sketch on those planes once again, or on any flat surface, whatever is highlighted. I'm going to draw my flat surface here, plane there, and then I'm going to draw a circle tool. I know the shortcut key, so I'm going to press C for circle and draw a little eye for my Pac-Man and press stop sketch. I can then modify it, so strangely enough that shortcut is Q, and I can pull that down like so. So in reality, I can draw a sketch on any flat plane or any flat surface. There are two ways in which I can edit a sketch. I can edit a sketch from the browser, which is this section over here, or I can edit the sketch from the timeline down here. The timeline records every step that I make, and I can actually go back in time by dragging that scrubber back to any point, and that will be the time that I'm now at. Let's look at how to do it from the browser first. In the browser, we can see that we've got a number of items here with little arrows next to them. They can be expanded out, and we can see there that I have two sketches. The first sketch would be the first sketch that I did, and as I move over that, it sort of highlights on the shape what I'm seeing. And I move over this one here, that's the second sketch surface that I used. I'm going to edit that one by either double clicking on it, like so. I'll hit stop sketch, or I can right click on it and choose to edit the sketch, like so. Any changes I make to the sketch will be reflected. If I make a change that's too complicated, it's not going to be reflected. So I need to hit stop sketch now, and you can see that that circle has now moved over to there. I can edit this as well over here by right clicking on this one in the timeline and editing it. You'll see that if I highlight over that, hover over that, once again it shows me that particular thing. So I'm going to edit this sketch, and I'm now going to drag it back to where it was. If I go to the effort of drawing another shape on the sketch, say for example a rectangle down here, and pressing stop sketch, you'll just notice that that doesn't necessarily pull through, and that's because it doesn't know to actually have that particular modification on that particular section of the sketch. You'll notice next to the sketches in the browser, we get to be able to turn them on and off using this little light here. I can now see the square that I drew when I edited the sketch last time. If I wanted to now modify that, it will be a different modification here, and I can pull that up. Press OK. You now see down in the timeline that I have two modifications, and as I hover over each one, That's the modification that I pulled through for the eye, and that's the modification I pulled through for the square. I can edit those at any time. You should only ever have one sketch turned on as best practice. When you get more skilled at using Fusion 360, you might want to leave sketches on for certain reasons, but when you're beginning, it's best practice to have any sketch that you're currently working on the only sketch that is active. So I should turn this off once I'm finished using it. By default, when I draw a sketch, so I'm going to draw a sketch on this shape here, by default when I draw a sketch and modify it, so for example here, stop sketch, this is now alive. By the default, I actually, when I modify it, so I'm going to modify it now and push that in just a little bit and press OK, that sketch turns off. If I ever, I'm going to press Command Z to go back, if I ever go out of a sketch, save my work, come back in 2 days later to continue working, and I see a sketch on here, I should edit that sketch or turn it off. I should not actually start a new sketch until that sketch is actually completed and resolved. I'm just going to modify that back in again, like so. When you do draw a sketch, and I'm going to create a new sketch, this time on top of this one up here, when you do draw a sketch, the sketch palette comes up and the stop sketch section comes up. If you're trying to work on a sketch and you can't see either the sketch palette or the stop sketch function, you're probably not editing a sketch. I'm now into sketch 4. The sketch palette controls a number of useful items that you can use. One really good example that I like to use a lot is a construction line. If I draw a construction line and press L for construction line, and I go from here to here, you'll see that my line is dotted. That is a line that I can use as a tool for locking onto others. Say for example, I want my next line to be an actual line that's parallel to this line here. So I can draw that line from there to there. Press tick to close that line, and I can use the parallel tool from the sketch thing to click on this one, and now those two lines will be parallel. In the sketch palette, we can actually look at construction lines, or we can look at constraints, which we'll go to in greater detail later. The other thing that you're going to need to do a lot in sketches is dimensions, and that can be accessed by pressing the D key. And the D key will put this little change on the icon, and I can use that D key to set a dimension on my sketch. One of the key tricks to actually drawing a sketch, and as your diagram gets more and more complicated, I'm going to stop sketch and I'm going to come out and I'm going to start by closing that sketch off and creating a new sketch now. I'm going to create a new sketch over here. And one of the problems you're going to get when you start drawing a sketch, especially if I try drawing the line tool, is that as I hover over things, you'll see that that little blue X, for example, is locking me to the line on the outside. I might want that to happen. I might not want that to happen, but you need to pay careful attention. One of the ones that often traps people, for example, is that triangle there, which is a midpoint. If I place that sketch, it's going to be locked at that point. And if I lock it from here to here, I can't then move that line anywhere else. It's locked. You can also see that by locking that line in place, it's brought in these other items from another sketch or from another object. If I use that or am unaware of that, I can get into trouble when I'm trying to change the dimensions of my particular line. If I want to go from here to here, but I want it to be only 2 mils above, I need to press Command Z until that line goes away, use the line tool, and make sure that that triangle is not there when I do that. Now that I've got that in there, I can now see that that line is blue, and I can use the dimension tool to say that this is going to be 2 millimeters from here to here. That way I can be aware or sure of exactly where my item is going to go. So just be aware of locking when you're drawing sketches.